For years, the internet tried to kill Dolly Parton. Not once. Not twice. Death hoaxes swept social media so many times that fact-checkers at Snopes had to publish debunk after debunk. And every time, she answered the only way she knew how, with humor that made her bulletproof. "I know that lately everybody thinks that I am sicker than I am," she said in October 2025. "Do I look sick to you? I ain't dead yet." And somehow, you believed she'd outlive everything and everyone. She wasn't done joking either. "I used to joke that I was the queen of the tabloids," she laughed, "but now I guess I can say I'm the queen of social media AI." Then, on August 25, 2026, the rumor finally came true. This time it wasn't a hoax. Dolly Parton died at 80, her nephew confirming the news in a video she had asked him to record years in advance. But here's what the breaking news banners didn't tell you: the rumors didn't come from nowhere. The signs were there. She postponed her Las Vegas residency. She quietly mentioned procedures she needed. And 4 days before she died, she sat down with People magazine and said, "I am dealing with some health issues that I just didn't pay attention to when I was watching over Carl." Carl. Her husband of 59 years. The man who had died just over a year before her. What really happened in those final months? What do we actually know, and what is still rumor? And how did a girl born in a one-room cabin in the Smoky Mountains build a fortune worth between $450 million and $650 million, and own every single song she ever wrote? A woman who turned down Elvis Presley and cried all the way to the bank. If Dolly Parton ever made you believe that a song could save a life, Hit Like is a tribute to the woman who wrote more than 3,000 of them. Because the story of how she died is not the real story. The real story is how she lived. Let's start with what this title promises: the cause of death rumors. Because before there was this death, there were 100 fake ones. In 2023, after another celebrity passed away, fabricated posts declaring Dolly dead raced across social media, again. Snopes had to step in, again. She laughed it off, publicly and privately, the way she laughed off everything the world tried to hand her. That was the trick of Dolly Parton. The world kept trying to write her ending, and she kept refusing to read it. But in the fall of 2025, something changed. Quietly. In September of 2025, she announced she was postponing her Las Vegas residency, a rare move from a woman who had never stopped. Doctors, she said, had told her she needed, in her own words, a few procedures. She joked that it was time for her 100,000-mile checkup. Everything, she insisted, was treatable. But behind the scenes, the list was longer than anyone outside her inner circle knew: kidney stones, one of which had become an infection, dehydration, dizziness, an immune system and digestive system that she would later say had been out of whack for years. The quiet, compounding problems of an 80-year-old body that had been running at full speed for 6 decades, and had finally started to slow down, whether she agreed to it or not. In May of 2026, she posted a video update: she was responding well to treatment, just not fast enough to return to the stage. In August, 11 days before she died, she appeared by video at Dollywood to open its new ride, butterfly wings fluttering behind her, and told fans, "I get a little dizzy and I get dehydrated. And I'm dehydrated. So my Nashville doctor has kind of clipped my wings, saying, 'You ain't traveling this week.'" She called it nothing. She always called it nothing. Meanwhile, she was still building. Her Songteller Hotel was set to open in Nashville in September. A new Life of Many Colors museum, which her team called the largest exhibit celebrating her life anywhere in the world, was on its way. A coffee brand, born from the lyric she wrote in 9 to 5 4 decades ago. "That's a dream I've had for over 40 years, she said. "Some dreams," she added, just take a little longer to come to life. To understand what happened next, you have to understand what she lost first. On March 3, 2025, Carl Dean died at 82. Carl Thomas Dean, the man she met on her very first day in Nashville in 1964, outside a laundromat. She fell for him before fame did. He fell for her before he ever heard her sing. The conversation lasted 59 years. And for the rest of his life, he refused to be famous, no premieres, no red carpets, no interviews. He showed up beside her once, smiled for the cameras, and quietly went back to being the most private man in America. When Carl died, Dolly did what she had always done with pain, she kept going. She said it herself in that final interview, she had spent so long watching over Carl, caring for him through his final months, that she had stopped paying attention to her own health. Her exact words, "I just didn't pay attention to when I was watching over Carl." In October, she admitted it more fully, "Back when my husband Carl was very sick, I was for a long time, and when he passed, I didn't take care of myself." That was the woman. That was always the woman. Everyone else first. Herself, if there was anything left. She never had children, and her answer to that question never changed. She mothered the whole world instead. On the morning of August 25, 2026, her nephew Brian Seaver, her head of security for more than 2 decades, a role his father Larry held before him, released the video on her official accounts. He spoke slowly, carefully. "This video announcement," he said, "is something Dolly asked of me years ago, before I fully absorbed it as a future reality." You could hear the weight. "It is an honor," he said, "an honor that is mixed with absolute pride and great sadness. But sadness lies with us, not with Dolly." Then he told the world where Dolly Parton had gone. "Dolly has lived in the light, and is in the arms of Jesus, surely met by Carl, her parents, and countless others who have watched her and longed for her to meet them in the heavens." And then he shared the detail that sounds exactly like her. "Dolly called me and said she wants to rest in a beautiful bed of plush cotton, because after a life wearing heavy rhinestones, she finally deserves to be comfortable and have some rest." He called her what she'd always been to her family. Dolly was a farmer, just like her daddy, he said. He farmed the soil, she farmed songs and happiness. And he added, she never saw a door she couldn't open, and the doors she opened made and changed history. "A private service," he said, "for family only, and in lieu of flowers, donations to the Imagination Library, the charity she built to mail free books to children." She had controlled her story for 80 years. The wigs. The songs. The empire. Is it really a surprise that she controlled the ending too? The hoaxes tried to steal her story for years. In the end, she took it back. So let's separate what's confirmed from what's still rumor. Confirmed, she had been dealing with kidney stones since at least September 2025, one of them becoming an infection. Confirmed, in May of this year she revealed her immune and digestive systems had been damaged, and that doctors were rebuilding them. Confirmed in her own words, for days before she died, she was still healin'. As she put it, "I'm still workin'." Then came the announcement. And in the days that followed, in a statement to the Tennessean, her representatives confirmed what she had been facing. Dolly Parton died after bravely facing a brief battle with cancer, surrounded by loved ones at the Vanderbilt Ingram Cancer Center in Nashville, where she had been hospitalized since August 21. The type of cancer was not disclosed. And that's the thing families hold close, the last chapter belongs to them. The full record may take months to emerge. But the bigger truth was already known. Dolly Parton spent 80 years deciding what the world saw of her, and what it didn't. Because the ending was never the story. The story begins 80 years earlier. January 19, 1946. A one-room cabin on Locust Ridge, in Sevier County, Tennessee. The fourth of 12 children. Her father, Robert Lee Parton, farmed tobacco and corn and never learned to read or write. He signed legal documents with an X. Her mother, Ivy Lee, had married at 15 and spent the years after raising children with the quiet endurance of a woman with no other choice. This was not romantic poverty. It was the kind that leaves marks, the kind where a coat stitched from scraps of old fabric feels like a luxury. Dolly's mother made her one of those coats, sewing rags together while telling her the Bible story of Joseph. Dolly wrote a song about it, Coat of Many Colors, and called it the most autobiographical song she ever wrote. Inside that song is the lesson that ran her whole life: the story you tell about a thing determines what that thing becomes. Poverty became scripture. Scraps became sacred. And a girl with nothing learned early that what she made with her own hands was the only thing nobody could take from her. She was singing in church at 6. On local radio in Knoxville at 10. She recorded her first single at 13. And on the day after she graduated from Sevier County High School in 1964, the first person in her family to earn a diploma, she packed one bag, climbed onto a Greyhound bus, and left for Nashville. Her whole hometown came out to see her go. Nashville in 1964 was not waiting for Dolly Parton. The industry was a machine built to take from people like her: no money, no connections, no leverage. She watched it happen to everyone around her. So she learned the rules, and then she learned how to rewrite them. In 1967, she joined the Porter Wagoner Show, and the face of American music changed forever. Porter gave her a national platform and expected, in return, her loyalty, her career, and eventually everything else. She stayed 7 years. And during those years, she built the image the world still remembers: the wigs, more than 100 of them, catalogued and ready in minutes. The nails. The rhinestones. The makeup applied with an artist's precision and a comedian's self-awareness. "It takes a lot of money," she once confided, "to look this cheap." She said it and laughed. But the line was a philosophy. The image was calculated. The image was armor, the rhinestone equivalent of her mother's coat of many colors, stitched from pieces of other things to keep out the cold. She was always careful to tell you the difference. "I'm not offended by all the dumb blonde jokes," she said, "because I know I'm not dumb. And I also know I'm not blonde." Underneath the armor was the real thing, the songs. More than 3,000 of them. She wrote at 3 and 4 in the morning, before the world could interrupt, on hotel napkins, on the backs of envelopes. "My songs are my diary," she said. 3,000 entries. And every one of them owned, because Dolly Parton owned everything she wrote. Not by accident. By decision. That decision was tested by the most famous entertainer on the planet. In 1974, "I Will Always Love You" hit #1 on the country charts. She'd written it about leaving Porter Wagoner, a farewell, an apology, and a declaration of independence in 3 minutes and 32 seconds. She played it for him before she left. He wept. She wept. She walked out the door anyway. Then came the call that would define her financial future. Elvis Presley wanted to record the song. In 1975, that wasn't an opportunity. It was the opportunity. Colonel Tom Parker presented the terms, Elvis records it, and Dolly hands over half of the publishing rights. Half of the song. Half of everything it would ever earn, for as long as copyright law exists. Dolly went home and thought about it. She loved Elvis, loved what his voice would have done to her words. And then she cried. She has said she cried for days. And then she said no. "I cried all the way to the bank," she said. Elvis never recorded it. The song stayed hers, 100% hers. 17 years later, in 1992, a 29-year-old singer from Newark, New Jersey, named Whitney Houston recorded I Will Always Love You for a movie called The Bodyguard. It wasn't a faithful cover. It was a reimagining so powerful it essentially replaced the original in the public mind. 14 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. More than 20 million copies sold. The best-selling single ever recorded by a female artist. And every single copy paid Dolly Parton a fortune in royalties, all of it hers, all of it the harvest of a decision she made in a moment of grief, saying no to the king of rock and roll because she refused to give away half of what was hers. She trusted the song. She trusted her own work. Because the thing you own is the only thing no one can take away. So let's talk about the numbers. In June of 2025, Forbes estimated Dolly Parton's net worth at $450 million, ranking her among America's richest self-made women. Celebrity net worth, using a broader valuation, put the figure at $650 million. The gap isn't carelessness. It's a measure of how hard it is to value what she built. She wasn't a tech founder. She didn't inherit a company. She didn't marry into money. She was a songwriter from a two-room cabin who built an empire one decision at a time. Start with the catalog, more than 3,000 songs, publishing rights held in entirety, a near impossibility in an industry built on separating artists from their work. Forbes estimates the catalog alone at about $150 million. It keeps earning year after year, Jolene, 9 to 5, I Will Always Love You, and thousands of songs you've never heard, covered, licensed, and played in every corner of the world for 60 years. Then there's Dollywood, the theme park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, in the very county where she was born. She co-owns it with the Hershend family. Her stake is estimated at $165 million. The park draws around 3 million visitors a year and turned Sevier County, the poorest place she ever knew, into one of Tennessee's biggest engines of tourism and jobs. She didn't forget where she came from. She built an economy in the middle of it. Beyond the catalog and the park, film and television, from her Oscar-nominated work on the 1980 movie 9 to 5 to decades of acting and producing. Licensing that put her name on everything from perfume to cookbooks. Real estate, held quietly, like everything else she owned. And here's the part that makes the math feel small. The philanthropy wasn't separate from the fortune. It was the point of it. In 2020, when a COVID-19 vaccine was still a distant hope, Dolly donated $1 million to Vanderbilt University Medical Center to fund early research that helped pave the way for the Moderna vaccine. She announced it because she wanted other donors to follow. They did. In 2022, Jeff Bezos gave her $100 million through his Courage and Civility Award, with no strings attached. She gave most of it away, to libraries, to literacy programs, to her own Imagination Library, the initiative she founded in 1995 that mails one free book a month to every enrolled child from birth to age 5. By the time she died, it had mailed more than 270 million books to children in 5 countries, more than 1 million books a month every month, for 30 years. Her father signed his name with an X. She built a program that put 270 million books into children's hands. I never had children of my own, she said once. She mothered the whole world. She meant it literally. The library was her child. Those 270 million books are her legacy. Which brings us back to where we started, the rumors, the questions. There will be arguments over the estate in the months ahead. People will come forward with claims and stories. They always do. That's what happens when a fortune of this size changes hands: paperwork, courts, accountants, the slow machinery that follows every extraordinary life. And one more open question. In December of 2026, Dolly, a true original musical, the Broadway show she co-wrote, was set to begin previews at the St. James Theatre in New York on December 7th. Whether it proceeds, and in what form, hasn't been announced as of this recording. But here's what won't go through probate: the songs. Jolene will keep playing. Coat of Many Colors will keep playing. 9 to 5 will keep playing, in offices, on playlists, in the corners of people's memories where certain songs take up permanent residence. I Will Always Love You will keep playing, her version, and Whitney's, and every other version by every artist who ever looked at those words and thought, yes. That's what I've been trying to say. She wrote that song about leaving. She wrote it as a farewell, and as a bet on a future she couldn't yet see. 17 years later, it came back and helped make her fortune. That was Dolly Parton. She trusted the work. She held on to what was hers with both hands, through Porter, through Elvis, through every powerful man who ever arrived with a contract designed to take half. She held on. She kept writing. She kept waking at 3 and 4 in the morning, when the world was quiet enough to hear what needed to be said. She kept mailing books to children who will never know her name. She kept wearing the armor, the rhinestones and the wigs, to the very end. She died one of the wealthiest self-made women in American history. She died having given away more than most people will ever earn. And she died owning every word she ever wrote. That's what the rhinestones were always about. Not glamour. Armor. The armor of a girl from Locust Ridge who decided, before the world had any reason to believe her, that everything she created would remain hers. And spent 80 years proving she was right. Leave a tribute in the comments for the girl from Locust Ridge who owned every word she ever wrote. What is the lesson of a life like hers? What does it mean to build something so large from so little, and give so much of it away? And what do we do now with the music, the 3,000 songs, the diary she kept for 6 decades? Not long before she died, someone asked her about everything she'd done. She smiled and said, "Look at all I've done in 80 years. I just feel like I'm just getting started." Maybe that's the point. The songs aren't finished. The books are still being mailed. The story of Dolly Parton isn't over. It's just getting started. Subscribe to Golden Fame News, because every legend deserves to be remembered the right way. And if this video meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Rest easy, Dolly. You earned it.